Yes, hi, I'm Stephanie Savoy. I'm a friend of Arliss, and we'll be presenting together.
Okay, great. Welcome. Glad to have you. Okay.
Sorry,
no
Lori.
new members.
I just, this is Sarah here. I just wanted to say I just now got an email from Arliss saying she's running a little late. She'll be here, but do I see her on the screen yet? No.
No, I haven't seen her log in yet.
So anyway, not to worry. She'll be here soon.
Okay, and no new members. Okay. So Lynn Brandt has an announcement that she wants to make, and to do that, I'm going to share a screen. When it comes up, Lynn, you can talk about this. Whoops. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, take it away, Lynn. Lynn, you're muted.
Lynn, I'm unmuting you.
Lynn, can you hear us? Kathy,
Okay, I've unmuted you. Try talking now, Lynn. We still can't hear you. Your microphone might not be on or something, or maybe you didn't join with audio. I don't know.
well, maybe I will say what Lynn would say. She has this treadle sewing machine with all these wonderful feet, and she has decided to sell it. If any one of you is interested, please get in touch with Lynn. I think you said you wanted $400 for it. Is that right, Lynn? Nod. Okay. And I'm going to ask you yes and no questions. You can nod. Does it work? Okay, it's fully functioning. Okay.
I believe so.
Oh, did we hear you?
I said I believe so.
Oh,
Okay.
we heard you.
Good. Yes, I think it is. My mother-in-law said it worked. I have not tried it. But and I don't know if $400 is too high or too low. I don't think it's too low. But I would like to have it removed from my home.
Well, you might take a look at postings online to see what treadle machines are going for. I ended up giving mine away because not too many people want them anymore, but I did donate mine to the Sewing Machine Project. And they found a home for it. But anyway, if anybody's interested or has any advice for Lynn about what to do with it, you can give her a call. She's in the membership list, complete with email and a phone number. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then, let's see. So either programs or Lisa, I don't know who's going to go forward with this. Is it programs?
It is programs. It was going to be Linda, actually. I was going to lead the program and do some introductions, but she also, I just talked with her just a minute ago as well, and she's having some technical trouble at home. So she'll be joining us too, but not here yet. So I'll get things started just by introducing the topic of the program, which, you know, you'd likely all or most of you remember what it is. January is traditionally our community sew month, where we gather in person and sew together on a particular project that commonly Lisa has lined up for us. Can't do that this year, of course, but instead we're going to talk about lots of other options in the community for volunteer sewing opportunities. So a number of people have lined up to talk about organizations that they work with or know about. And first up tonight is a guest that Lou has brought. So she's going to do that introduction.
My guest is Nancy Daly, who is the originator and proprietor of Hat Ladies and Two Gentlemen. I haven't been participating in the Hat Ladies lately, but I can just say that I did it for a couple of seasons, but because I got into it from Nancy and I have a mutual friend who is Paul Fieber, who spoke for the Guild earlier this year, talking about his kites that he sews. So I haven't prepared anything else about you, Nancy, so take it away.
That's fine. Well, I'm guessing this is very casual, and that my understanding is a number of people are presenting, so I'm happy to be on board as part of this. So the Hat Ladies are an all-volunteer, self-funded group of nearly 60 women, and including 2 men, who sew polar fleece winter hats for causes and those in need in the greater Madison area. We started totally unexpectedly and very informally in about 1997, when my kids were young, and I was sewing for their classes at school and their friends and their sports teams. And it kind of just happened. It kind of just grew after that. Pretty soon I was sewing for the school carnival, and then I was sewing for, somebody asked me if I'd sew for a Head Start program. So it just kind of built. The first kind of real season we made 191 hats. And I say we because I slowly started twisting the arm of a number of friends and said, oh, come and join me. This will be really fun. And so people did. And so we made 191 hats, and fast forward to the season a year ago, just prior to COVID, where we made about 7,500 hats during the season. So it's really just blossomed from, 2 or 3 friends up to, 55 to 60 people working with the Hat Ladies and doing something every year. So recipients of the hats include every Head Start child in Dane County. We have sewn a hat for the past 19 years. So next fall will be our 20th year sewing for every single Head Start child. We sew for 6 Madison elementary schools on a rotating basis, and this is for the needier half of schools. There are some schools that they don't need our help. I said, I'll tell you anything you want to know, but you're on your own. So the needier half of the schools with higher percentages of free and reduced lunch kids we are in sewing for. We sew for the Madison School District Play and Learn programs, for numerous other after-school programs, community centers, the Salvation Army Shelter, Days, Port St. Vincent, Seton House, the Road Home, YWCA Catholic Multicultural Center. We've got a long list. The Friends of State Street Families, Coats for Kids, Odyssey Project, Wanakee Neighborhood Connection, Girls on the Run. So we have a very active and busy schedule. Our season is kind of September through December, although there's a lot of planning and a lot of material preparation during the remaining part of the season. We usually do a couple of fundraisers each season, but we don't keep the money from the fundraiser. We will do it for an organization, and then we give them 100% of the proceeds that we raise. We do that for Girls on the Run, and we do it for the Midvale Lincoln PTO. Not every year, but we have kind of a schedule that we do that for. For the most part, Hat Ladies and Gentlemen bring their own machines. to the events that we do, and they sit down and sew with every individual child. So it's very different than, you know, you can sit at home by yourself and make a donation, write a check, you can make something and send it off, but we are actually sitting there with every single child that we sew for. And I'll use Lou and Dorothy actually as examples. I remember one school that they were both at and telling, actually, I guess I mostly remember Dorothy, sorry, Lou, and I remember telling a child how Dorothy sews all of her own clothes and just talking about, you know, sewing, you know, you want a new jacket, you sew it. You want a new, you know, dress, you sew it. You want a new, you know, pair of slacks, you sew it. And these kids were just amazed that that's how it actually happens, that's where, you know, they were kind of looking at their own clothes going, really, that's where it comes from? And just pointing out the stitches on their clothing. And so there's a lot of conversation that happens, you know, while we're working with each individual child. And the children, what fun is that they get to pick out their own colors. I just have some examples of a few hats, you know, every color imaginable. And the children get to pick out what they want in their hat. So it can be as kind of ordered and patterned as possible. And I don't happen to have any random ones this year because the kids weren't picking them out this year. But sometimes children, there are 10 possible colors in the hat with 1 band, 6 triangles, and 3 tassels. And sometimes children will pick out 10 different pieces of fabric for their hat. And I just say you can be just as warm in a crazy hat as you can in a patterned hat. So it's all fun. Plus, we need a little fun in January and February when it's kind of gloomy out. So there are some programs, and so the hat is customized and sewn for that individual child and fits that child. We've also learned how to customize hats if a child has a bun on top of their head or unusually sized head. We've learned how to accommodate that. You know, we'll make what we've termed volcano hats, where we just leave the top off the hat so that the bun can come right out of the top. So we can do all kinds of accommodations, and we enjoy personalizing it for children. There are a few programs where we don't actually go into the program. For example, the domestic abuse shelter, where we will make the hats that they want, donate them, and then they give them to their clients as they're needed, because their clients, mostly it's a changing, you know, clientele, so it's different every week. So we donate the hats and then they distribute them. During our peak season, we have over 55 events between September and December, middle of December. So that means 55 times I'm loading up my car, unloading my car, going into a school, making those arrangements with every school or program that we're going into, you know, making the arrangements and getting the information out to every hat lady and gentleman who's going, where they're going, what door to go in, what time to be there, what the expectations are, you know, for what that event will be like. And the events can range from the smallest one we go to just has 9 little babies. So I'll go there by myself and just sew 9 little baby hats. The largest program we've ever done in one school day was 750 children at Leopold Elementary in Madison. So we went in at the beginning of the day, and it was nonstop until the last bell rang at the end of the day. We were sewing hats, and we made 750 in one day. So it was aerobic. I told people, you know, dress in layers because you may be down to your tank top by the afternoon. But we've been working hard. So I do all the coordinating of all the programs, setting all of that up, you know, communicating with the hat ladies and gentlemen, making all those kind of arrangements. Some people come and sew maybe 3 to 5 times during the season, and other hat ladies and gentlemen come 15 to 20 times during the season. So it just kind of depends on people's personal schedules and what else they're involved in. Besides the sewing, when we are at bigger programs, we also have people who come and just do what I call traffic control for us. Because when we're having a class, for example, at Leopold Elementary School, we have a new class of children coming in every 10 minutes the entire day, nonstop. We have to have somebody there who's going to greet those children, explain what they're doing, a team of people who help them get through the line, pick out what they want, make sure they have the right number of pieces. They get their name tag. Every hat is sewn with a little name tag inside, so that when we're sewing at an elementary school, we put all the children's names in there. So those traffic control people have to write out 750 name tags or 300 or however many we're doing. So they write them all out so that every child has his or her own name in there. So those traffic control people, and then when we're finished sewing, we also have a mirror at every table always, so children can see the finished product and how nice they look in their new hat at the end of their time. We also, behind the scenes, before any of this happens, we have some of the most important people, and those are our cutters. And we have women who just cut fleece for us. And we have these beautiful templates that were made. These are actually monogrammed with my name. And our main cutters also have theirs monograms so that they do all the cutting of our pieces for us. So I don't know if you can see behind me, but I have probably 30 tubs of fabric here that are cut out, ready to go, ready to make into hats that are all, you know, a tub of red triangles and a tub of red bands and a tub of blue and sort of every color. It's all cut out, ready to go, and pack up and off we go. So the dedicated cutters, we certainly couldn't do it without them. So the hat ladies, and I say that the hat gentlemen don't mind being called hat ladies either, they've told me. But we were named by a 4-year-old child at a Head Start program years ago. He said he couldn't wait to tell his mom that the hat ladies had been at his school. So we call ourselves the Hat Lady. This year we made about 6,500 hats. Even during COVID, we did it all off-site. I would have somebody come to my house once a week and we would bag up 500 hats, 20 bags with 25 at each hat. So Mondays from 11:30 until 1, I had 20 hat ladies driving by my house, picking up their bag of hats to sew. Then the next Monday between 11:30 and 1, they would drive by, drop them all off at my house, and the next group of people would pick up their 20 hats, and some, you know, did it both in the same week, picked up and dropped off. So we managed to get 6,500 hats made for a variety of programs this year, and still have a few that we're finishing up on, and then we're going to start making the Girls on the Run hats for next season. So we're busy doing that. We're busy getting everything all set up. You know, and we'll pretty soon start to schedule and start to think about next fall and what we'll be doing. So since we've started this whole adventure, we have made over 88,000 winter hats for causes in need around the Madison area. So I'm sure you've probably seen some of these around town. It's hard to miss whenever you're at an event. There haven't been too many events this year, but they're around there. I see them on the sledding hills and walking by frequently. So to the onlooker or the outsider, you know, or the recipient, it just looks like we're making hats for children, and that's a much needed and beautiful thing. But as one note I received from somebody said recently, they said, to know you as a community partner is a huge honor and we're grateful. Thank you for your generosity and the difference you're making. And on the inside, I will say that the hat ladies are as well oiled as our machines in terms of having things run smoothly and just really fun events. Those events not only help children get hats, but they really feed the souls of hat ladies and gentlemen as well. One woman telling me that she said, I don't think I've ever done anything that I felt so good about at the end of the day. You know, thanks for letting me be part of this group. So we have, you know, people who need to leave our group from time to time because they're moving or, you know, involved with grandchildren or something, but we also welcome new people in the group, and you know, we have people, as I said, who just prefer to stay home and cut for us, and we have people who, you know, can't wait for the next event. So I'm happy to answer any questions at any point that somebody might have. I have a picture of, here's just a book that somebody made for us one year, just some happy kids with hats. This was quite a few years ago. And we've also made the hats in doll size, so they fit like sort of American Girl size dolls. And then I've also made little teeny tiny ones that can either be an ornament on a tree or put on your sweater or something like that. So we kind of have fun doing them in all sizes. And we've been known to leave them in libraries on the animals that are, you know, if they have stuffed animals or something, little mascots in the library, we've been known to make sure that they have hats to match. So.
Nancy, where do you get your fabric? Do people donate fabric?
That's a good question. We actually have these great sort of bumper stickers, because this is what fleece happens, is what they say. We don't do any fundraising. We're not a 501c3, but it really does just happen. You know, my sister-in-law found, and not in the quantities we needed, but in tremendous quantities. We had one organization in Madison who they had been given a huge number, like 175 or something, fleece blankets. Well, they couldn't use them. They were all, they were not well made. Let's just put it that way. They were not well done at all. And they were in colors that were not usable by this organization. So they found us, and we got 175 yards of fleece from them, which is wonderful. You know, we figure we go through about, what did I figure out? We go through about 130 bolts of fleece a season. So, you know, getting that donation was great. We have people who just kind of regularly, you know, who regularly just, you know, buy fleece and drop it off at my house from time to time. You know, my sister-in-law found an ad in her, I don't know, some neighborhood newsletter or something. Somebody was getting rid of a lot of fleece. And so she said, I'll take it, and brought it over here. So we have bags and bags from her. You know, the Madison Monona Lionesses Club gives us a donation every year. So it just comes from a variety of places.
Great.
Do you have a phone number or email address if we wanted to contact you?
Yes. I don't know what the best way to put that up is. Should I put it in the chat, or should I just tell? I can tell you right now. It's nmdaly@charter.net. And Lou has it as well.
I think
Thank you.
what we should do is compile a list of all the speakers with contact information and the names of their organizations, and then we'll put it in the next newsletter, or we will send it out to the group. But it'll be available. So
Great. So if anybody has other questions at any time, feel free to email or call.
Just want to say, Nancy, what a wonderful program. Congratulations to you and all the people who've been involved in it.
Thank you.
and your persistence and longevity in keeping doing it. But
Well,
I guess that's how it gets to be a well-oiled machine.
yeah. Well, schools, when I tell you, I meet with the principals a week before we go into a school, which, you know, and we work out a plan for the classroom or the library or wherever we're going to be. And I leave them with a diagram saying, when we get there at 6:30 in the morning, this is how the room needs to be arranged. This is what we need. This is how many outlets we need to every single table. This is how many chairs we need. Here's, you know, so everything is set. So when I'm there at 6:30 in the morning, it should be ready to go. And I tell them I need a schedule with a class scheduled to come in every 10 minutes all day. And they look at me like, every 10 minutes? And I said, yes, every 10 minutes. I said, hat ladies don't like to sit still. So we got to keep them moving because they don't want to sit still. So we just keep on moving. And I pretty much always hear, I can't believe you did it, but you really did do it. And, you know, every 10 minutes all day long. So.
That's great.
Thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Nancy. That was
And
good.
hi to the Tenny parent who just said something up there. Julia, I think it was.
No.
Oh, no. All right. So next up we have Linda Sweeney, who Lorraine will maybe introduce.
Okay. A few years ago, I used to swim at the Y, not a few years ago, but until COVID. And I ran into Linda Sweeney there, and we became acquainted, and she told me about the Days for Girls project that she had been doing and was still doing at her home. And was I interested? And I said, yes. So I've been going, not every single time, but until we couldn't do it this year. But I invited Linda to talk about the Days for Girls project and why she and the rest of us have decided not to do it anymore. And she's looking for new things for our group. So this is Linda Sweeney, and tell us all about it, Linda.
Okay, hello. First, I first heard about the Days for Girls program because I'm on the board of the Sewing Machine Project, and somebody came there and spoke and so on. So I found it very intriguing. I was very interested, and so I got the program going. And what essentially we would do is we would create a kit for a girl that came in a Ziploc bag like this, and inside was a card that would help a young lady know about her periods and be able to track. And well, let me go back. Somebody who was very smart was traveling through a third world country and realized that women in third world countries, and unfortunately some here in the US, had nothing to use when it came to their periods. So they would miss days of school or days of work because of that. And as I explored, and there are women who use branches and leaves, and I mean, it's just incredible how limited they are as far as resources. So this woman created a set of materials that people could use. And the first piece is a holder that snaps around the crotch of a pair of undies. And then into that holder, you can put these flannel squares that have a double layer in the middle and then thinner on the two edges. And that tri-folds and tucks into the pockets of the holder. With that, they get a washcloth, a bar of soap, and 2 pair of undies, and 8 of the flannel liners, 2 of the holders. And they get the undies because many of these women cannot afford a pair of undies even. So that is a kit that takes care of one woman. They're washable and reusable and often last a woman up to 3 years before they're so worn that they can't be used anymore. So I got a group of women together, and we would meet just once a month and sew for 4 hours or so. And we created over 200 kits, which ended up going to a village near Pokhara, Nepal, with a woman from Stoughton who took them there. And they were very well received. In many of these countries, having your period is a terrible taboo. You are ostracized from the house even at these times. Anyway, she also ended up taking a couple of sewing machines from the Sewing Machine Project, and she taught 32 women how to sew. And they also learned how to sew these kits. So they are now more self-sustaining in that they can continue to produce the kits. Then I met a woman from India, and she said, you know, there's a big problem with a lot of people having infections and even cancers because they don't have the water to properly wash the fabric. And it's like, oh no, this is wrong. So we investigated, or I investigated, and I discovered there was a man in India who had created a set of 4 machines that takes plant fiber and fluffs it up, shreds it, fluffs it, and makes a totally biodegradable pad that women can use for about a penny a piece. And that he then finds an outspoken woman in a village. They teach her how to use this. She can hire women. They make these pads. They sell them for 2 pennies maybe, or a penny and a half each. And they can help an entire village. So I thought, well, this is a much better way to go than to be getting people infections. So anyway, we had about 50 partial kits left, and I've heard of a shipment going down to Honduras, so I offered those up to the woman who was dealing with that, and she was very grateful for them. And so she's getting some machines also from the sewing machine project, and my whole set of instructions with a step-by-step examples of how to make them. And so she will be taking them down there. I felt better about Honduras because they get a lot more rain than something like the hinterlands of India or Nepal, where you're carrying water for a mile or so. Anyway, going back to this man in India, there was a movie made called Period, End of Sentence, and another movie made called Menstrual Man. And they'll both talk about that in case you want to know more about it. And I thought at the time that the set of machines was about $1,000. Well, in researching it, I discovered that it's more like $15,000. So my initial hopes of just kind of gathering some money from some people and setting up a village are reduced. But there's also a group called the PAD Project, which is connected to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And they are a charity which is trying to get some of these machines into some of these villages. So I'm going to pursue that a little bit more and find out more about it. But anyway, the Days for Girls kits, great idea depending on where they're going. If there's a low amount of water resource, that could be a problem. And the alternative is also great if a group can collect the money and get it into some villages. So now I'm looking for a different charity project because ours kind of hit the wall.
And I think Linda is hoping to get some ideas from the rest of you here.
Yes, I am.
Meanwhile, if anybody has an extra $15,000, maybe that they want to donate.
That would be put to good use.
Yes, it would be.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing all that with us, Linda.
Yes, thank you, Linda.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad to be here because, like she said, Lorraine said, I'll be listening carefully for other ideas.
Nice. All right. Well, I see that Linda Harpst has joined us now too. Hi, Linda.
Everyone.
Things are going better?
Well, so far, but I'm holding my breath.
Oh, gee.
We have a circuit breaker that keeps going.
Oh. So it wasn't just a one-time thing, huh?
No.
All right.
We'll probably need to get an electrician, but for now I'm online. So.
Very good. Do you want to take over introductions while you're here? And then I'll step in if you disappear. I know that Pat Goolman is next up.
She waiting? Okay. Well, first of all, I'm Linda Harfstead, one of the program committee, and I'm sorry I'm late. I was supposed to begin the program with our first speaker, but we had an electrical problem. So here I am, and here you are. And I think that Pat Goolman has someone to present, and I think we should just go ahead to her.
Okay, sounds good.
Where are you? Oh,
okay, I'm gonna see if I can bring up my thing. I got some pictures here.
Otherwise, Pat, I've got your slideshow all queued up if you want.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, you got it.
I got it.
Take it away.
All right, let's see how this goes. So I'm going to talk about the Mending project, which is one of several projects that are associated with the sewing machine project. And I don't think we really had a formal presentation from the bigger part of the sewing machine project, but I think Tricia is currently maybe chair of the board for that. And we've got Annette, who I know has done some classes. So maybe when I'm done, if they want to say something about some of the other things that the sewing machine project does, that would be good. So Mending is a local project, and we've really not been doing anything because it involves us getting together with other people and haven't been able to do that lately. The main thing that we do with Mending is we help to fix things that people want to keep. And the clientele that we hope to serve mostly would be people that have the greatest need for repairing clothes that they have, or sometimes people buying new clothes at St. Vinny's that don't fit them. The hems are too long in a skirt or a pair of pants. But we have no income criteria for any customer to be one, to be a customer. So we will address any need that people bring to us. We have several sites where we go and we do mending, and whatever project is brought to us at that point in time is what we do. So if you like to solve problems, it's a great kind of project, because there's challenges that come up all the time. Some of the kinds of things that we find ourselves mending: a lot of backpacks. A lot of people that we have as clients carry all of their possessions in a pack of some sort that they carry around, and those packs get a lot of stress. And so we do a lot of backpacks. We do a lot of hemming on jeans, either because they're just too long or they've gotten so frayed they need to get kind of reconstructed. T-shirts, sweaters, sweatshirts, tank tops, camis, lots of jackets, coats. People having a warm coat if you live outside during the winter in Wisconsin is really, really important. So a lot of coat repairs, which is a high priority. Purses, totes, camp bags, underwear people bring in, nightgowns. I bet we'll see in the future, if we ever get back to going again, face masks probably, because we may be wearing those for a while. Hats. People have, and the thing is, people have a favorite hat. We may be seeing some of the hats that come in from the hat ladies at some point, because those kids love their hats so much, but a tassel's fallen off perhaps. And just, we've had service dogs come in that need something fixed with the, I don't know, what do you call it, the harnesses that they have. The totes that CPAP machines are carried in. People need those to be fixed sometimes. It's just amazing. I did a boxing glove one time. Lots of pockets. Pockets are also, when people get a hole in their pocket, they don't like to lose stuff. And so we do fix a lot of pockets, buttons, dresses, bedding. It's just amazing the stuff people bring in. So this project, right, as the last time that we met and were active, we had 3 sites in Madison and 1 in Monona where we were doing our mending. At the downtown Madison Public Library, we had menders there every Thursday morning from 10 to 12. At the Goodman Center, we were there on a Thursday evening, which was a food pantry night, and the night that they served a community meal. So there were usually people that would come through then, and we would do the first, third, and then if there's a 5th Thursday, we would be there then. The Beacon, which was one of our newer homeless shelters, daytime shelter, we would be there the 1st, 3rd, the 5th Tuesday morning. And then the Monona Library, which I think Jen Felkowski has been in charge of that one. I think they're still going, or were before our COVID, once a month on Sundays. We have a long list of volunteers who want to be on the list and may occasionally volunteer. We have about 20 people who are really active and volunteer on a pretty regular basis. Over the course of a year, we have approximately 170 times that we mend at the 3 sites. And I counted up, being a demographer, 344 person hours of mending. Some of the people only mend maybe once or twice during a, some people just love it. And for some people, it's not their thing. They may try it once and that's it, or they just really want to mend a few times. But we have other people that like to volunteer for multiple times, and they will have a regular, they say, put me down for as many times as you can. I'm ready to go. So it's very flexible that way. The last time we counted, I think it was about 400 and a little over 400 individual clients that came through at different times. The library, because we meet there the most often, has the most clients, and less often at the Goodman Center. The Beacon, when I compiled this, was just getting started, and so I think those numbers picked up a little bit later on. We have always, at every mending site, we have 2 people there. So people always have a partner. We do have an orientation that we've put together, which is a written orientation. So people can see the details about how they do their setup. It varies at different places. I must say, our partners at the library, at the Goodman Center, at Beacon have been great about trying to give us the space that we need, the electrical supply, often letting us store equipment there. At the library, they let us keep machines and all our supplies there so people don't have to bring a machine. We have one machine at the Goodman Center, but some people really would prefer to sew on their own machine and they don't want to use the one that's there, so they like to bring their own machines. So that's kind of the gist of what the mending is. I kind of wanted to mention also, though, I think one of the things I think that people really enjoy with the mending, it's not, I'm going to take off the slides now if we want. I'm done with that. If I can figure out how to stop slide sharing. Wait a minute. There we go. One of the things I think people really like the one-to-one interaction that they have with the customers, and it's usually adults rather than children that are coming in, and similar to sort of what the hat ladies were doing with their interaction with the children. We have some repeat customers, and so you get kind of you start to see the same sweatshirt. Maybe it's a dear sweatshirt that someone loves, and they're doing their best, and you'll repair it once and again, trying to let them hang on to it as long as they possibly can. But it is a chance to interact with people that I think a lot of us have really found very rewarding. You also get to know another sewer when you share that time and sort of learn new things as you sew next to them about techniques they have for solving a problem. So I think for a lot of us, it's been a very rewarding experience to be a part of the mending community. And I think we originally started this based on hearing about something similar that existed in San Francisco. And since we've started ours, we've had a number of people that have heard about our mending project. And we have, given support in the sense of answering questions to any number of different folks who have attempted to start their own mending or been interested anyway. We haven't really followed up yet to know how, or I don't have the details in terms of what's actually happened, but I think it has had some outreach that's been a result of it. So if anybody has, and we would welcome new menders once we get going again.
So Pat, this is Arliss, and I'm one of those people that contacted the Sewing Machine Project for help starting a mending day. And we started ours in 2017.
Okay.
And we would do it at the Badger Prairie Needs Network when they would have a community meal the first Saturday of every month. And I first got people from our church, and I have a list of about 12 people. And sometimes I have more people than I need because they just like to come and sit and visit. People bring their items in and then they go wait or have the community meal. But I think the menders get as much out of it as the as the people do that are getting the mending done.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you for sharing that.
I also I have a serger and I take mine, but we needed another serger. And so I contacted, can't remember her name, but she's
Margaret.
Yes, Margaret. And she set me up with a serger, and we had a person who just learned how to use it, watched YouTube videos, and so that was really nice.
That's
for the Sewing Machine Project to support us that way.
Well,
I'm so
Arla,
glad to hear that.
thank you for doing that.
Any other questions for Pat?
Well, I'm seeing overlaps already with the hat ladies because, you know, we are also called on to mend at times. So we would, I'd love to team with you at some point, you know.
Yeah, we
I mean,
should.
Salvation Army Shelter is especially, you know, people will occasionally bring in things, you know, while you're here, you know.
Yeah.
This goal. Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
So thank you.
Thank you.
I think I know some of your menders and
Probably.
people on the board. So.
Yeah. Yeah, several of which are here right now.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if Annette or Trish wanted to say anything about the classes that the Sewing Machine Project does, just not to hijack the program committee, but
Trish, if you could talk about the overall classes. I've got a few slides that I can show about the specific ones, but it's really, I'd much rather have you talk about the Sewing Machine Project.
Well, I'm happy to do that. As with everything else, right now, we are not giving or having classes. We, as an organization, pivoted, and we have been doing some YouTube videos, how-to YouTube videos, simple ones, how to sew on a button or how to mend something that we've been working on. And we have, we did one, how to make a skirt out of a man's shirt. And so we've done those, and we have more coming up that we're going to be doing. So, you know, class-wise, as I said, we're not doing any of that right now, unfortunately. Maybe this fall, hopefully, but we do them, let's see, Annette, maybe you have to help me with this. We do them at several community centers.
Right. At Bayview Community Center, which is on the corner of Park Street and Regent. And there are primarily, actually, Trish, if we can tag team, and in the meantime, I'll pull up the few slides that I have.
Yeah, now I can't remember exactly where we've all done them.
And
also
Northport.
Oh yeah,
Northport,
right.
Bayview, and I
those
think at
are-
a church
those
on the
are-
west side.
Those are really awesome. You know, people, we have volunteers that come and assist the teacher, the instructor. Annette is also an instructor. And so people volunteer to help out in the class. And we have 2 volunteers along with the instructor. And there's maybe 10 people in the class. And, you know, they go over very well. And the Sewing Machine Project supplies them with a machine. And if they complete the beginning sewing class, all 5 or 6 classes, they get to keep, the students get to keep their machine. We supply them with fabric, we supply them with notions and whatever they would need. So it's really awesome. You know, we have a lot of fun getting fabric together and making up the little notion bags and that kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of a shame, obviously, that we can't do it right now, but that's the way it goes.
So let me see if I can pull that up now there. So there's another site where Rebecca teaches, and I can't remember where that is.
I can't either.
But there are both, we teach both just beginning classes, which is the class where they get their machine.
Yeah.
And then, which is the majority of the classes. And I share these mostly because of the delight on the women's faces when they've made a garment. This is a beginning class at Northport. And these women are of Hmong descent, Latinx, and Middle Eastern women. This woman, I believe, is from Syria, and she brought her teenage daughter to class to learn along with her while she was learning. And of course, in the beginning classes, they do very basic projects. We have 2 or 3 helper volunteers along with the teacher. Like Trish said, 8 or 9 students, maybe 10, although there are always people that are missing from each class. I mean, these are people who have lots of challenges in their lives. And so the fabric comes mostly from the sewing machine project. For this class, I happen to have also a donation that someone had given me, a lot of actually home deck fabric. This was their last class and their last lesson. They learned how to make just a basic skirt. And you can see, I'm just delighted. This is a second class. These are women, these were all women from the Middle East, either Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, or Syria. And they really, in their second series of classes, so they had already gotten their machines. And then this was a couple months later, so they had had a little bit of time with them. And they wanted to make a tunic. So they're pretty, pretty square looking tunics, but they made them work. And I just wanted to say before when I saw this slide, when the women come to the class, the Middle Eastern women have mostly learned to sew, but they of course didn't bring their sewing machine with them. But almost all of these women are just extraordinarily skilled with hand sewing, and they're in their, whatever native garments, whether they're Hmong or in this case, Middle Eastern. But this is an example of the incredible work, the handwork that this woman was able to do. This is a Bayview class, and this was a beginning class. You can see there's always a lot of activity, a lot of, you can see one woman has her baby there. It's, they're just really fun. Here they are with their bags. In the beginning classes, if there's enough time, we try to teach a basic zippered bag, which is what that is. So really lots of fun, and in terms of opportunities, through the sewing machine project is the way to begin to volunteer for those.
Yeah.
And there's Trish, you can maybe talk a little more about that.
Yeah, we've always have a need for people to volunteer to help out in the classes. I've done it a couple times. I've heard from people say that they really, really enjoy it, really fulfilling and a lot of fun. And I agree 100% with Annette. The look on their faces when they have completed a project themselves and have learned, the need is so great. And some of you may have heard me tell this story, and it's kind of an older story, but I feel like it's pretty relevant yet today. The very first class that we did, which happened to be at the Catholic Multicultural Center, we were teaching people, women, men too, I recall now, that were from the country of Bhutan. And I was helping a woman, teaching her how to thread the machine. And she was really having kind of a difficult time getting it. We finally got it. And, we put some fabric under the presser foot, and she stitched a little bit. And I handed her a scissors to cut the threads, and she didn't know how to use the scissors. Mm-hmm. And to this day, it kind of brings tears to my eyes. I look around my sewing room, and I don't know how many scissors I have in here, and downstairs. And, we take that for granted. Sometimes I think I don't, but I really do. I take that for granted. And the look on her face when I showed her how to use it, was unbelievable, unbelievable. So, and you know, look, we all do that. We all share our talent and we all help out, and it's awesome. So, you know, the sewing machine project is just another avenue for people to share their talent. So hats off to everybody, and Pat Blumen, who's done an amazing job with the Mending program. So thank you, Pat.
Am I able to be heard?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Are there any other suggestions for the sewing machine project, or shall we go on to the next person? I'm a little concerned about time since it's 8 and we need to be done at 9. Any other questions for the sewing machine project? Okay, our next person then is Lisa Johnson, and she's going to talk a little bit about Merit or NICU.
So for those of you who don't know me, I am actually the community sew chair for the guild, and we should be doing our community sew probably this Friday would have been when we were doing it. And just so you know, there's snow in the forecast. So
Of course there is.
yeah, not a lot, but you know, we've gotten snowed out the last couple of years. So just, you know, if ever Charlie Shortino wants a forecast for roughly the second or third Friday in January, just, you know, call us, see if we're doing our community sew. So anyhow, a few years ago, we were contacted by Meritor, and we've been making these little gowns for the NICU. They're bereavement gowns. These are for babies who don't get to go home. So it's a sad thing, but absolutely a very necessary project. They do have people who do the donated wedding gowns and make them into gowns for babies. That's another branch of what they do. But what we do are the fleece ones. And one of the reasons the fleece is so important is that some of these babies are very, very preemie, and their skin is just so delicate. So it needs to be something soft. They're very easy to sew. You know, there are 3 pattern pieces. There's a sleeve, the back cut on the fold, and the front. We even use stick-on Velcro because they're not going to get laundered. And we have the Velcro, we have the ribbons, little buttons to put on, just to make them, you know, to give them something, you know, something to remember them by, and ribbons to cinch the bottoms and the wrists. Currently, they don't have an absolute need for them, but I do have their fabric and then the supplies that we have. So just to, you know, make them all up so they have them. I currently have maybe a half a dozen pieces cut out already. And then I also have, I think, 2 bags with lengths of fleece, like 2 yards, and then the pattern pieces. So if anyone is interested in just cutting, holler, I can get you fabric to cut. If you want to sew some of them, you know, for a while they actually needed some, so I was doing the pick them up on my front door. We've got the ribbons, we've got the Velcro, we've got buttons, so we can set you up with all the notions. The need is more so for the littler ones, but we do some of the big ones as well. It's kind of like making doll clothes. They're little, so if that makes you nervous, you probably don't want to do these. But it's not Barbie. It's not insanity-inducing sewing. But they're, you know, again, it's, you know, fleece is so forgiving. It's an easy thing to do, a very unfortunately necessary thing, and, you know, very heartwarming. So, and a lot of our people have done tons of them. So I thank you for that. This is such a great group to be part of. The people are so giving. You know, tonight is like, oh my gosh, just highlights it. So I feel like I'm in such wonderful company. I love you all. So that's all. Anybody have questions, you can contact me via the community. It's community at MASG. It's not charity anymore. So you can get a hold of me an email or message me tonight if you want to do any. So we just have, you know, like I said, a couple lengths yet to cut and about a half a dozen yet to sew. And until they need more. So thank you for those of you who have done them and those of you who keep us in your hearts. We love you. Any questions? Otherwise, Linda, take it away.
Okay. The next person we have is Rachel Patterson and Nancy Jo Patterson.
All right. Yes, so I am presenting with my great aunt, our guest tonight, Nancy Jo. I will start with the presentation here. I'll share my screen and I'll have her jump in with what she knows about it because she has a lot of more firsthand experience. But I'll just start out with Partners of the Americas. It's a collection of nonprofits inspired by President Kennedy. He had started this initiative to have government-to-government contact, interaction, and exchange. So Partners of the Americas took that people-to-people philosophy out of that and started this exchange. We have one of 60 independent partnerships, Wisconsin to Nicaragua. It is one of the more, they say flagship chapters in this organization, and you'll see why in a minute. Partners work as a grassroots organization that uses the partnership between the states and Latin American countries, so mainly the Northern Hemisphere. And it is where they're centered. So we have, one picture didn't come up. So for 55 years, this Wisconsin-Nicaragua partnership has existed to promote the mutual understanding and exchange between the cultures. And it really does manifest in a lot of different avenues. It's very diverse. We're going to focus on the sewing aspect, since that's our shared interest here tonight, but do know that they provide a wealth of opportunities. In this one bottom picture here, Sharon Bowen is a special person that will come up here in a minute, and her daughter Amy. And this is on an ambulance that they were able to donate. And here's a little sneak peek at these efforts. This is a just intense scale where they are loading up airplanes, they're loading up shipping containers, and to the right you can see these just massive containers that they pack full of all sorts of things, and they have an extensive crew to make this possible. So my personal connection with Partners of the Americas comes through my great aunt, Sharon Bowen. She was the executive director for 17 years until her passing, and then her daughter, Amy, now continues on that legacy. Sharon helped to organize learning centers in 100 villages, one of which is named for my great-grandmother, June Lemke. So this is very much a family affair. I would love to go down there someday. That would be amazing. Nancy has been down into Nicaragua, so we'll get to hear her experience. And just some of these pictures here. This is Amy and Sharon. Sharon's husband, Bob, holds a picture of June. This is displayed in the June Lemke Learning Center. And then here is June on one of those classic singers and in-person teaching. She did make the trip at least once, I think possibly several times down to Nicaragua. And here's just a little sneak peek into the Learning Center. As far as sewing goes, they do from the very beginning, we're talking sewing machine parts and how to thread your machine into pattern drafting. This is quite the range of skills because they're not only giving these women and men the tools to start into sewing, but to really grow a business, is to make it self-sustaining. And then another picture of this library plaque. There's a library dedicated in Sharon's name as well. So learning is very central to this effort. And so here I'll introduce my personal connection through my husband's great aunt, Nancy Jo, which is, it's kind of great that we have two great aunts to know. These are great people. We see Nancy helping out with the effort of packing some of these large crates that go down, and then a little sneak peek at some of her work. She herself is an accomplished quilter, and has made the trip, as you can see. So I'd love for her to jump in now and tell us about her experience with partners.
I became acquainted with Partners of the Americas and the Wisconsin-Nicaragua project probably about 7 or 8 years ago. And they were having an open house one day, and I thought I'd go up and see a little more about things. I'd never been in their office or anything. And I get there, and Amy said, well, why don't you go on this learning center tour? I thought, what tour? International? That's sort of my game. That's what I like to do. So I thought, well, okay. I said, maybe I'm not strong enough to do that, because I am getting on in years, really. She said, well, I just see a picture of you on the back of an elephant on a tour in Kenya? I said, well, yes. She said, well, if you can ride an elephant in Kenya, you can ride a bus in Nicaragua. So I went. And then she said, well, what are you going to teach? Well, I'm not a teacher by profession or by skill, but I do know how to do a lot of things. So I did figure out something that I would do, and I had instructions in English, and she got it translated into Spanish so that I could hand out a piece of paper to the ladies that I would be working with in this class of 10. And so I thought, well, I can provide the materials for them to do this. So I was thinking, and then I said, 10 people, well, I can handle that. But then she said, well, you do know that there's going to be 5 different sets of classes. I thought, 50 instead of 10? Well, I was a little concerned about that, but my friends in various organizations that I'm in, I would tell them, and the ones that were quilters or sewers in one way or another would come up with, anywhere between 5 and 15 quarters, so I had enough fabric for all of the people, and I was teaching them how to make a fancy little bag and providing them with all the materials. Now you'll see, here I am with my curly hair, teaching a class, and then the next lady you see over there looks like strangely dressed, but she's a nun actually. But in Nicaragua, they dress differently than they do here in the States. And she was the leader of a resource center away from where we were teaching the class, but she came, and it was a miracle for me because she could speak Spanish, which I can't, and she could speak English, which I can. But she came because she wanted to be able to teach the same thing to the people in her community then. So she was a great help to me. And it was a fascinating thing because sewing machines are something that we sort of take for granted. Today, I went into our quilt club meeting, and one of the ladies there, who is probably as frail elderly as I am, she brought her sewing machine in, and someone said, well, where do you want us to set it up? Oh, she says, just set it next to Nancy Jo because she's going to be taking it. Well, I didn't know I was getting a sewing machine for Nicaragua today, but I have one in my car, which I'll deliver tomorrow. Not in Nicaragua, but at the warehouse in Stevens Point. These pictures here, well, there's a whole package of sewing machines there. You obviously found that somewhere. I didn't find that one, but
Yeah.
You did. And these ladies here are in the warehouse in Stevens Point. They have come, 5 years ago, they came as a group to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Wisconsin-Nicaragua project. And so they were just really excited to see all the sewing machines that were there waiting to go to Nicaragua. And the picture here of Amy with a little girl wearing a doll or carrying a doll, and both the girl and the doll are wearing identical dresses. One of the, I thought it was the June, I don't know who it was, one of the women who was an original member of the Wisconsin Nicaragua Partners suggested having them make dresses for the American Doll that could be sold here in the States. And so we were having a party, and the girls came with their mothers and wore a dress just like the one that was made for the doll that was going to America. The dolls didn't go to America, didn't come here, just the dresses. We already had enough American Girl dolls here, I think. Anyway, so that they make those, and I do know that at the cultural fair in Stevens Point, at this cultural fair in Marshfield, we have always a display for the Wisconsin Nicaragua Project, and we're always, the doll dresses are a highlight of that particular thing. Let's see here.
And I believe you can buy them online too. I think
that's
they
right.
Sell them. Yeah. So it's kind of a fundraiser to go back into the project. So not only are we sending our teaching, our instruction, our materials, but then they're sending things back to us. So there's kind of that exchange going on.
Also, if you ever go to the American Girl benefit sale that the museum, the Children's Museum puts on every summer, the Wisconsin Nicaragua Project has a booth there.
Oh, they
selling
do.
Their things as well.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I actually that's my job as a volunteer, is I set up that craft fair. So I've been in contact with them in Stevens Point every year that we've done this for the last like 12 years that we've had a craft fair. So it's been fun to have them there. It's really cool stuff. It's beautiful.
World.
Well,
yeah.
I'm sure they do it in many places in the state. I worked in Marshfield for about 30 years, and so that's how come I know about the one in Marshfield and the one in Stevens Point.
Yeah, and we don't really have a sewing guild or an American Sewing Guild presence necessarily in the middle of the state. So this is kind of a nice tie into your area of SOAS. I think it's all very much the northern part of the state. So we don't want to leave you out. We want to include you and stay connected that way too.
I want to say one more thing. Oops.
It went away for me. Sorry about that.
Things that happen. I belong to a service club in Marshfield, which, although I don't live there anymore, I continue to participate in that. And a couple of years ago, one of the women wrote up a grant so that we could do advertising and information giving on the Wisconsin Nicaragua Project and ask for donations. We did get lots of donations. And one of the things that happened was she went to somebody's home and the lady said, well, I've got some fabric here. The fabric was because she had closed down a quilt shop, and we got everything that was left at the time she closed her shop. And you saw those big boxes, they are actually 25 cubic feet inside, each of those. We had more than 25 cubic feet of 100% cotton quilting fabric. So it's good quality. And when it got down to Nicaragua, the ladies down there were just absolutely ecstatic. We thought they thought they had died and won the world. So it's really interesting. If you ever want to do cleaning in your sewing room and you have things that you bought one time and you have never used in the last 23 years, and you don't know where to go with them, I would love to come down to Madison and pick them all up and take them to Stevens Point and put them in a box like that and send them down. I also get sewing machines. And if you're wondering why we would want to have old sewing machines, well, first of all, I just about drooled over that pedal machine that you were showing there earlier, because those go exclusively to families where there's no electricity in Nicaragua whenever we get any. And I've managed to pick up maybe 5 or 10 of them over the last 5 years. not purchased, they were donated. But I get probably 20 or so sewing machines, electric ones every year. And the first thing that happens to them is they go from me to a retired sewing machine repairman who takes them all apart, checks everything over, and puts them all back together. And if it's something that's in that's terribly wrong, he just keeps all the good parts, and so they get used to replace bad parts in other machines. So it's really amazing how many people donate sewing machines. So if that ever happens and you don't have a use for it down here, I'll be happy to come down and get them.
Are there any questions for Nancy Jo?
One thing I learned teaching a class, I wasn't a teacher, I'm not a teacher, was that having only 10 students is pretty overwhelming if you're not a teacher.
A lot of teachers in this group, they can definitely attest.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Nancy.
much to both of you for that presentation. Our next presenter is the UW Hospital's fidget blankets, and Stephanie and Arliss should be here to present that.
Okay, I'm not sure how I got connected with Stephanie, but I somehow got connected with her and learned that she needed some information, needed some help with fidget blankets. So I'm going to share my screen now, and she can talk a little bit about what she does at UW Hospital and how the fidget blankets help patients.
Thank you so much, Arliss. And I think we were connected because I had sent an email out about this time last year requesting some help putting together fidget blankets using fidget blanket kits that I was hoping to receive a grant for. And I think somehow we got connected that way. But anyway, so my name is Stephanie Savoy, and I'm the clinical nurse specialist with the inpatient geriatric consult team at UW Health. We see patients 60 and older in the hospital for a variety of reasons, but one of the more common reasons that we're asked to help out with patients is confusion. The patients might be confused because they have a diagnosis of dementia and that's their baseline, or they might be confused because the medications that they're getting in the hospital are making them confused, or they have an infection or just not sleeping well in the hospital. One thing that we see is that confusion sometimes manifests itself as patients starting to kind of pick and play and fidget with the medically necessary lines and tubes that are connected to them. So you'll see them start to pull on their oxygen tubing or pick at the cords attached to their heart monitor, and those things are important and need to stay connected to them. And so one thing that we like to do is to provide patients with fidget blankets. These are, and I know Arliss has tons of pictures, but they're just small lap quilts that are made of different textured fabrics and different embellishments that patients can pick and fidget with instead. So they're a great distraction. They're also brightly colored, again, different colored fabrics. And so it's just a nice comfort for patients. I think especially now with COVID-19, there are visitor restrictions at the hospital. And so a lot of our patients, they aren't able to have family or friends visit them while they're in the hospital. And so being able to provide them something like this just gives them, again, that little sense of comfort and maybe something familiar in the vast sea of the unfamiliar environment of the hospital. So the issue with fidget blankets is they're one-time use only items. There's no great way to sanitize them. And so once I give these out to patients, I can't get them back. They have to be thrown out if they don't go with the patient. And if they come back to me and I have to throw them out, it just breaks my heart to do that. So I hope the staff gets rid of them without me seeing them. But because they're one-time use only, it's really hard to keep up our supply, especially nursing staff and even our doctors really like the fidget blankets. Even if our team isn't involved with patients, you know, I have staff calling me to see if we have fidget blankets, can they get a fidget blanket for their patient? And we help those patients as well. They don't have to be, you know, being seen by my team. And so to help keep up with the demand of, you know, the fidget blankets, not last fall, fall of 2019, I requested a grant to be able to get funding to put together fidget blanket kits. And so these kits would contain all of the materials needed to make a fidget blanket. So the fabric, the embellishments, all that a sewer would need to add would be the thread and time and talent. I was fortunately awarded the grant and was able to assemble almost 200 fidget blanket kits. Many thanks to my husband who helped me on a couple Sundays assemble all of these kits together. The kits are pretty easy to assemble. I'm not a big sewer by any means, and I can put one together in about an hour. And again, it includes all the materials that are needed. You can add extra embellishments if you'd like, but a pretty quick and easy and fun project too. I especially think so this time of year when it's a little dreary out. Again, these, as you can see, are pretty bright and fun and cheerful little blankets to provide. Arliss, like I said, has been helping with fidget blankets for the past year. And so her group has been involved, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so our group is, we call ourselves Sharon Care, and it's at the Sugar River United Methodist Church here in Verona. And so what we did at the beginning is we just made some fidget blankets that were not made out of Stephanie's kits, and the kits really make it a whole lot easier. Excuse the fact that I didn't have my my screen sharing set up correctly. But you can see here that each fidget blanket kit that Stephanie has, they have 2 squares of cotton fabric, 1 square of minky, and 1 square of fleece. And then you either get pom-pom and or like ball fringe, or else you get a zipper. And then you would also get a some pieces of ribbon and some extra pieces of fleece. So this person here had put an extra mitten on, and it's kind of left up to everybody. I think Stephanie's directions are really pretty straightforward. My group at the church, the Sharon Care group, we started out making little dresses for Africa, and all of our fabric was donated to one of a friend's one of the women in our group put on her Facebook page that she needed fabric, and yes, we got fabric out the wazoo. So these are just some of the ones that people have returned to me. Stephanie made 200 kits, and right now I have 60 of them, less the ones that I've already returned to her. On this one, the person turned a piece of the fleece, the extra fleece, into a pocket, and then appliqued a little kitten inside of it. Another place they had done was to have they sometimes put a spool on a piece of ribbon, and then the spool goes into the pocket. This is one where you can see there's a little extra texture. This is like that textured shelf paper. I'm a big fan of buttons, and so Stephanie provides 4 buttons in each kit, and looks like I might have saved one from this to make another one. The last 3 photos are just pictures that we had made, some of the ones we had made before Stephanie gave us the kits. And the yellow square down here at the bottom is what's called a marble maze, and it's just 2 pieces of fleece, 5 inches by 5 inches, with a marble in between. And then the patient can work the marble up one side of the maze, cross down until, to the other side. And I think they can just do this, for quite a while. We put some hair ties on there. This had some beads that we put on there. This turned out to be a placemat, and I have an artificial flower that I took out the center and then replaced it with a button, little hooks, and then the fuzzy stuff over there too, again with the marble maze. And this also was a placemat that one of the, it's called the Trash and Treasure Sale. Now it's called the Hidden Treasure Sale at St. James Catholic School benefit in the fall. And at the end, anything that hadn't sold, she would give to me as an in-kind contribution to another charitable organization. So those are, just some samples. I think now that Stephanie still has some, if anybody is interested, Linda Sweeney, I think you were looking for a new, a new project. I have a quilt that is older and it doesn't have any sentimental meaning for me. So my plan is to cut it up into fidget quilt sizes and bind the edges and hand those out to some of my friends. So, and Stephanie lives in Belleville. I live in Verona. So whenever I have some that I collect from my other volunteers in my sewing group, I just put them out on the porch and she stops by and picks them up. And likewise, she drops them off, and that's how I distribute and collect from the volunteers in our share and care group too. So,
what size are those that are made from the kits, roughly?
That's a great question. I don't, two by 1.5 maybe. Would you say, Arliss, if that?
yeah, I can measure them.
That's close enough.
Yeah, the other thing that is important is the backing is felt. And then because of that, then it will stick to their laps or their blankets and not slide off of their laps while they're fidgeting with them.
And I just ask that all embellishments are sewed down really securely. Some of our patients certainly do just sit with them nicely in their lap and play with them, but I have patients who will whip them around their head and they really go to town with them. So secure as tightly. And then I always, when I get the fidget blankets from Arliss, I bring them home and then I add extra glue like under the buttons and stuff just to make sure that things are really stuck on there. I don't need patients popping off buttons.
Okay, we can do that too.
I'm happy to do that. I have my whole basement set up with that, so I got that.
About how many quilts do you use or consume in, let's say, a month or a week? I don't know what measure you might have, but how many do you need?
That's a great question. So use is somewhat variable. Depends on the types of patients that, we have in the hospital. If we happen to have, more confused patients in the hospital, we definitely go through them quicker than if, our patients, for some reason, we don't have as many confused patients. I'd say on average, when we do have adequate supply, and I'm not rationing them, average 5 or so a week. And then, so I try to keep kind of control over distributing the blankets just so I can keep supply, but some of the doctors know that they're in my office. And so sometimes I'll come into work in the morning and there'll be a note on my desk. I stole/borrow/redistributed a blanket. I hope that's okay. And it's like, oh, that's fine. So I'd say about 5 or so a week.
Okay, so about 260 a year, maybe?
I'd say about that, yeah. Of course, too, once word gets out that we have the blankets, people know and people like to request maybe a little bit more frequently. So yeah, just depends.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for being here to speak with us.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
I do want to say that when I we took some of these fidget blankets to Mending Day because sometimes we have some downtime with 4 menders there. And so we were, just doing handwork, attaching buttons and things like that. And one of the volunteers who was there to serve the community meal was an elementary teacher. And she came in and she says, we could really use these in our classroom. Some of the students, she says they pay attention better if they have something that they can touch or fiddle with. And so I gave her a couple that we had. And then she came back and said, and for the kids who have emotional problems or they need to calm down, it would be really helpful if it could be a weighted blanket. Or a weighted fidget blanket. So I was starting to work on that, do a prototype with some rice, with with compartmentalized, and we could take that out and it could be washed because in a school it's not necessarily a single-use item. And then the pandemic hit, so I haven't done anything more with that. But I know that there are schools. After I gave her 2, she said that. Every classroom wanted one because they have a little corner where people go to sit if they need to calm down, and especially in the special education rooms classes that they were asking for a lot more. So there is a great need not only for Stephanie, which I'm trying to help her out, but that's just another area I haven't explored is the ones in the schools.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. The next person who has signed up is Cindy Collins. I think I saw Cindy a little earlier. Let's see if we can get her on the screen to tell about her.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
There you are. Okay, go.
Okay, so this is a perfect follow-up because it's about fidget blankets. So I called RSVP to see if they were interested in coming to talk. And they said that they are so fortunate because of COVID, actually, that they have over 200 volunteers to help knitting and sewing and all kinds of things. But I mentioned that we had done bases for fidget blankets, and she said she'd love more of those. So I think that they make the ones for people in long-term care facilities. And they don't need the fidget parts. They have volunteers who do the fidgets, and maybe Arliss could connect with them, or I don't know. But she said bases, they do theirs 24 by 24. So they said, with batting, they would welcome, anytime they would welcome the base for the fidget blankets. And I have the woman's name and her phone number, so I can put that in the chat. So you have it. I think I gave it to Rachel too. So yeah, these fidget blankets apparently are really, really helpful for a lot of people.
Cindy, are you saying that what they want is, it would really be a 24 by 24 double-sided square, basically, and they would add all of the faceted things.
Right. Yeah, so we made these for last January, just a year ago, for our community sew.
Mm-hmm.
So we used a lot of upholstery fabric, and because it was thicker, we didn't have to put a batting in it. So we just had 2 layers of upholstery fabric with a ribbon sewn in the corner so that they could tie it to a wheelchair or something so it doesn't get lost. We can post the instructions on the website, probably. I'm kind of looking at Rachel's square. But we have it's very basic instructions on measurements and how long the ribbon is, and sew the ribbon into the corner. And, but yes, we've done this, and I actually delivered a whole bunch of them right at the beginning of COVID because I did masks and squares because really I could only handle straight lines. To one of our members whose name escapes me and I'm embarrassed, but we.
It was Trudy.
Trudy, yep.
Yeah.
Hi, Trudy.
I'm online. Actually, I can talk more about the fidget quilts too, because I work with RSVP. Hello?
Go ahead, Trudy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've made them anywhere from 18 by 20 to 24 by 20. It's not rocket science. It's just so we can get a bunch of different fidgety things on there. And that last year, the bases that were made by our guild were so helpful. I don't remember how many we all made, but they've all gone out, and they don't just go to long-term care. They go to schools. They're very popular in schools, and the demand is increasing all the time. In fact, Stephanie, I think I talked to you a while ago. I don't know if she's still there, but she and I had talked about the fidgets too, and she was going to put in a request to RSVP before she got the grant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they did, and you guys were able to supply my team with some fidget blankets, which was much appreciated.
Yeah. So, but it's just amazing the need out there, and people are asking for fidget mitts too. It's like a circular, it's like a muff, fidget muffs, and we put like either a stuffed animal or something inside that they can fidget with, and then a couple things on the outside.
So it sounds like there's an ongoing need for this type of service.
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, RSVP is always looking for volunteers too. We've got, I think Kate probably told you there's like 200 that are sewing at home, but there's so many, it's not just fidget quilts that we make, it's tons of different things, from hats to mittens, scarves, bags, just tons of stuff.
Where do you get your supplies for the fidget blanket?
You can get them from, if you're making them for RSVP, we get them from donations. And well, I'm a longtime sewer, so I usually use my own things because I got a lot of stuff. But yeah, it's from donations, and people are so generous. You know, if you're in a sewing group, there's always somebody that's stopping sewing, and they might give you buttons or fabric or whatever. The ladies that make them were very appreciative too, because of the way we made the mats last year. Because of the squares, it meant that they had less to embellish because there was already the different textures in the fabric. So that was really helpful.
Thank you, Trudy.
Yeah.
Any other questions about fidget blankets or quilts? Okay, the next person on our list is Eileen, and she's going to be talking about Project Linus.
I'm unmuted. I do want to share my screen. And what I've done is put together a PowerPoint that I'm not going to really go through thoroughly. I think that, you know, really my purpose in this is to provide the content that you can go through at a later point and look at it. Gotta hide. I want to get to my slideshow, and here we go. Somehow I'm hidden here. One moment here. We did this earlier today and with some friends, and it worked just fine, but of course now it's not. So I'm not going to bother with this. I'm just going to run through this quickly and have this content. So I'm going to go through quickly just the overview of Project Linus. We're a nonprofit organization. It's national. It actually has international partners now. Many countries have formed their own. And it's completely a volunteer-run organization. The only paid staff is an executive director who is full-time, And she also has a part-time 16-hour-a-week assistant. So everything else is completely just person power provided by the volunteers. Whoops, here we go. All right, now it's working. We are arranged by local chapters, and our chapter is the Madison chapter. It primarily serves Dane County, but we do have a few other distributions, primarily in the southwest part of the state, from another chapter that did fold. And for those of us of a certain age, we all know who Linus is, but the kind of surprising but heartwarming thing is that every age group that we work with, when we ask the question, who's Linus? Why is this Project Linus? And they all know it's the blanket. So it's really a universal part of the cultural literacy at this point. We identify our local needs and we meet them. That really is the mission. So the needs that we have in Madison might be very different than the needs that might exist in Duluth, for example. So each chapter is going to be run in a similar manner, but we're going to provide our own, meet the needs of our current customers. And I think that's the point that I always like to make sure people understand, is that if we have some guidelines or restrictions on what we can take, it's not that that's a Project Linus rule. It's matching the needs of our organization. Why is this? There we go. So why must they be handmade? The message that we've heard from pretty much everybody tonight is that people making things for someone else is a very meaningful gesture, and it helps the people who make it as well as the recipients. So one of the very common things we hear both at our chapter and nationally are notes or thank yous or in-person thank yous from people who have said how much it touched them that a complete stranger took the time to make a blanket for that ended up with their child or with them. So it's every minute that you put into making it is given back to the individuals. And the other part of it, and this is one reason why I'm very involved with Project Linus now, is that I'm really a firm believer in community service. And I really think that people need to learn that very young. I was a Girl Scout leader for 2 troops that came from pretty privileged backgrounds, and they didn't really have a need. The Girl Scouts didn't give them things that they couldn't get through their families. So we really focused on the community service aspect as an area that we would develop and fostered that with them. Let's see. We're having some trouble here today. Sorry about that. And as with everything, things work fine until you need them to. So, sorry, if I'll go through this and I can provide this as a download or a PowerPoint. But the next content that I wanted to share with you is the dimensions. We take blankets, and Rachel, I apologize. I should have sent this to you as a backup, but I didn't because it was working just fine previously. So if you have any hints on how to get this to go back, I'm welcome them. So our distribution typically has been about 550 a month. And you know what? I'm just going to stop the screen share so this just doesn't annoy you. Our distribution has been about 550 a month, but during COVID, it's been much lower because many of our recipient organizations have not been able to do in-person services. So this past quarter, we were able to provide about almost 2,000 blankets this past quarter, and many of them went to organizations that serve children in need and families. So they ended up being really part of a group's Christmas present. We'd like to keep in reserve enough for the following month. So unlike some chapters that they get them in, they go right out, we are able to keep them in reserve and know that in any given month, we're probably going to be able to continue to supply. Our core volunteers are about 10 people. And some of them have been working with the group for 10, 15 years. And actually our storage place is someone's spare bedroom between Middleton and Cross Plains. So we're fortunate in that to have that distribution. The way, and our organizations that receive them are many of the typical ones: medical providers, social service organizations, domestic abuse, But we also have been able to reach out to some other organizations because we've had increased supply in the past couple of years. And that's one of my goals, is to try to reach some new populations that we haven't been able to serve because we've had to focus primarily on the hospitals. And what we have found is that many of the other hospitals, for example, are getting donations from other organizations, and they have a decreased need for ours. So we're hoping to meet other new needs. So the way that people help Project Linus is they make a blanket, and they're called blanketeers. You're a volunteer who makes a blanket, and that makes you a blanketeer. You can also sponsor a Make a Blanket event. We have many businesses who will hold these as their community service day. We have youth groups who will do them. We've even had just groups of people that are like, you know what, let's get together, make a blanket. And that's very popular. It's a great community building activity because if you make a fleece blanket, you can tie a knot and talk at the same time. So it's a really good group activity. You can donate fabric or a gift card. And we do get a lot of those. You can tell people about Project Linus. We love word of mouth. We have no budget for promotion, so word of mouth is our gig. And we actually have a lot of veterans, a lot of alumni of Project Linus recipients who as children received one. And then as young adults or even as a child, they may have a birthday party and say, don't give me a gift, make a blanket instead. So it's really heartwarming to see those sorts of paying forward for something that they have and still is valued. So there's lots of blanket options, and this is why I think it's a great opportunity for really people of any age. The proviso I have is that in Project Linus at the national level, anything we get is a blanket. So some quilters get very offended if their quilt is called a blanket. So I always make that disclaimer when I'm talking with groups that we call them blankets because that's part of our mission. And a blanket is just a nice warm thing that covers you, and a quilt is one of those. So that's not intended as an insult. It's part of the mission statement itself. So people can make traditional quilts. We get beautiful, beautiful ones that are just phenomenal that would be hundreds of dollars if someone were going to pay for it. We get a lot of what I call, in my sewing studio, they're my kind of quick reward. If I want to make a quick quilt and I don't want to do the batting, I don't want to do everything, I take a piece of fleece, I piece the top, sew them together with an envelope, flip it inside out, quilt it very simply, and I have a quilt. I don't have to do the binding, and it's very comfy and soft, even more so sometimes than the formally quilted ones. People can make no-tie fleece blankets, and those are the ones that are really, really popular with service groups. They're very simple. You don't even need rotary cutters. You just need to use a piece of paper, fold it in half like this to get how deep you're going to cut the fringe. Use your thumb or your finger as the measure. You cut fringe across and you tie it in a knot. So that is something that literally almost anybody can do. And those are very popular. We're really encouraging groups to do those as Zoom activities right now, because if you're meeting with a 4-H group, you can't meet personally, but you could still be sitting here talking and sharing your fabric and working on your project at the same time. And I tell people that during my weekly sibling Zooms with my 6 surviving siblings, I have been known to just work on one to kind of keep myself distracted from conversations that I don't want to pay attention to. So it's a good one. So our specs are very simple. It's make a blanket, make it out of new material, make it out of child-friendly, appropriate material for the age group. So don't maybe have little pink ballerinas on a blanket that you're making for someone who's maybe 18 and aging out of the foster care system. That's probably not the right match. So my recommendation is always, if you have a child in your life, ask them what they think would be good for that age group. They often are going to surprise you, but it's a good way to involve them as well. Our sizes are generally no less than 36 by 36 inches. And then no more than about 54 by 72. And I will say we get very few of those large ones, and we have a more limited demand for those. So we like to encourage people to make them kind of in that middle group. But we do have some provisos, and I can tell you that last Friday I had a pretty strong semi-allergic reaction to some fleece that I was labeling that had been laundered, or actually it had been transported to us in a deodorized garbage bag. So all the fleece picked up the scent from the bag, and it just permeated the house. It was really uncomfortable. We had another volunteer who broke out in serious hives from labeling blankets that apparently had been made in a house with cats. So the provisos that we like to really put out again are to keep in mind that these are going to be going to children, many of whom might be in sensitive medical conditions, and odors that you may not be aware of can be picked up on there. So please, if you have pets, keep the pet away. If you can't, because we know they're all quilt inspectors, launder the blanket, but use unscented detergent, use unscented lint dryer sheets, and please don't put it in a deodorized garbage bag. It just causes and we hate it. If we get things we can't distribute, it breaks our heart because we know someone intended those for a child, but we can't in good faith potentially distribute those. Other proviso, again, is with smoking. We have occasionally gotten ones that have a very strong tobacco odor, and we can't get that out. And the other thing is that there may still be chemical residue that even if we think we've gotten it out, we haven't gotten it out. So the blankets are a great opportunity for beginning quilters. I recommend them strongly to people because you can experiment. If you want to do free motion quilting, just try it on there. Just go for it because it's an experiment. Try a new block. Just make a giant block. If you're doing a carpenter's star, make a giant one out of layer cakes. They're very fast. So there's a lot of liberties you can take, but they also can be a really good way to push yourself, but also to know that while you're making these, you're doing something good, and people will be appreciating you for that. We do have other volunteer opportunities. Right now, for example, we're looking for additional blanket picker uppers and labelers because 3 of our people left. And when you're doing 550 blankets a month, that's about what's coming in, and that's a lot of picking up and labeling, a lot of person power. So I'll be putting a note out on our Facebook page shortly looking for individuals to do that. We also, if you are employed by an organization that has a matching donation policy, we encourage you potentially to consider that as a volunteer donation. If you have the ability to make a donation and have an in-kind match, that's wonderful. Other volunteer opportunities are to assist with events when we have them, but we haven't had them for a while because of COVID. So what I did want to say is with COVID, we're seeing a lot of the things that others have mentioned. Our group events have not been able to happen, and those have been a really important way for us to have people really engage with other people and to get something out of it themselves. They're also a good way for us to help our partners, Blue Bar, Electric Needle, artists in Baraboo and Quintessential Quilts are all drop-off locations. So we'd like to have events there that get people into those stores, get them familiar with them, and kind of indirectly pay them back for the assistance that they're providing for us by being a drop-off location. We also, with COVID, have found that some of our fleece donations have decreased because community service projects aren't happening. And the fleece blankets are really probably the most popular ones for the hospitals because they're easy to store. So if any of you have children or service groups that you're looking for projects, the No-Sew fleece blankets are a really good project for that. And information for those are on our website, which is, and again, I'll send this separately and can do this as a document, is www.projectlinusmadison.org. We've got a lot of information on there, including PDF downloads for how to do the no-sew fleece blankets and the NICU isolette blankets, which are another really great early beginning sewer project. You take a square width of fabric piece of 2 square width of fabric pieces of flannel, sew them together in an envelope, flip them out, top stitch around the end, and X through the middle. And those go to Meriter and to St. Mary's. And we always like to tell a cute story that a NICU nurse told us when we were at Quilt Expo a couple of years ago, that one of the things that she really enjoyed doing was bringing parents to the cabinet where the blankets were stored. And because they get to, it's a way to personalize that experience and find a blanket that's meaningful. Is it a football? Is it a sheep? Is it llamas? So she brought one dad over to the cabinet and she said to him, no, pick a blanket, but know that this blanket is going to be in every picture with your child for the next 20 years. And he looked at her and he said, oh, I really think I need to have my wife do this. So we know that these are very strong memories with the families. Sometimes they don't always end positively, but in those cases, maybe the parent might have something that is left with them. So that is the quick and dirty, and unfortunately the technology fail that did work earlier. So if any of you have any questions, I'm very happy to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
We actually had Annette Bolig listed at the end as our last presenter, but Annette, you have talked already. Is there more you would like to say?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Let's leave it till another time. Actually, this was the Kashia House volunteer opportunity, and we can do it another time.
Okay.
So we can stay on target with our timing.
Okay. Well, I think it's been very worthwhile to hear about all of these projects, and I want to thank everyone who is still on, including visitors, who has brought something to our attention that maybe we didn't know about before. I'm going to turn back now to Sarah, who will deal with any show and tell that people may have.
Well, and I might ask Lorraine and the whole group even, really. It is 9 o'clock. We have a short list of people who signed up for show and tell, so it maybe wouldn't have to take very long, but also wonder if folks would rather show us and tell us next month. What do you think?
Next month is super show and tell, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. You are so right.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Well,
wait till next month.
Yeah, I think 9 o'clock is late enough. I have one more thing to say though before we leave, and that is to formally introduce Trish Pulvermacher, who is our new membership chairperson. You heard Trish before, but where are you, Trish? You still here?
I am.
She's there.
Here I am. Here I am.
There
Lorraine.
she is. There she is.
She's number 8 square.
At the top of my screen.
So why is it, do you all have your computers on speaker view?
Mm-hmm. At the gallery.
Okay, then why aren't we seeing Trish?
Everyone but you is seeing Trish.
Yeah, she's there.
Yeah.
She's there.
Okay.
She's on the second row, 4th person on mine.
Yeah, but she should be in the big picture if she's on speaker view.
I think she wasn't
There
making
she
enough
is.
noise.
Okay.
I've got her highlighted, so.
Here I am. Here I am, everybody.
Okay.
So, can't miss me now.
We did do a little article in the newsletter about the transition from Pat to Trish, but I wanted to make sure everybody knows who Trish is and that she will be our new membership chairperson and CAB member, along with other new CAB members that you've already met. Julie, is it just Julie and Trish, or is there somebody else?
Dorothy.
Dorothy. Yeah. Dorothy, Julie, and Trish are the new CAB members. And thanks to all of them who so willingly and quickly joined up. Get Sewing, we expect a very wonderful super show and tell next month. And sign up in Rachel's form on the website, and we'll have a great time. Good night, everybody. And thanks to all our visitors.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.